right, we're going to get right back into it right now. Galatians 3:16, and it's got a lot of texture that we need to delve into more. Not only from a doctrinal standpoint, but also from a prophecy standpoint. You know, it says in Revelation 19:10 that the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. So let's get right into it. Galatians 3:16. Now to Abraham and his seed. This runs consistent, we're going to see, with Romans 9:8, and we'll quote that in a second. And his seed were the promises made. Exactly. What Paul is articulating is what he later, again, wrote to the Romans. 9:8. These or those of the flesh, these are not the children of God, but these of the promise, just like it says here, promises made. These of the promise are counted for the seed, That has a lot of implications to it that we don't normally realize. Because when we're talking about the seed, we're only talking about one seed, and we're only talking about one promise. Now, where this gets into the prophetic aspect of it, we're going to see where it talks about the transgression. And we all know that 9:24, not to get ahead of ourselves, but we'll just state it so that we keep it in the background, is that in Daniel, got too many verses. Daniel 9:24, it says, to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up the vision and the prophecy. Well, there we go. The prophecy. We just touched on that a second ago with Revelation 19:10. That the testimony of Jesus Christ is the spirit of prophecy. And, can't forget that and, we got to throw in the and part, to anoint the most holy. So, you know, one of probably the most impacting word in all of prophecy is the word after, that people don't even realize. After. Because it's after the 62 weeks of 7 years. Because we already had the first 7 weeks, 49 years, plus the 62 to build and restore Jerusalem that it talks about in Daniel 9:24-27, which equals 434 plus the 49, 3. The total prophecy is for 490 years. That only leaves 1 week left. The quantifier and the qualifier, however, comma, is specifically stated after the 62 weeks. Shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself? And all of that, which he was. Then it gets into to finish the transgression, which Christ did. It is not your Antichrist physicality of it. 7-year pre-trib, rapture cultus. That one word after, you are dead to rights. Because it's after the 483, which means that since it's after the 483, that last week has already gone into the first half of Daniel's last week. It's already gone into, which leaves for 3.5 years, Christ's ministry, which only leaves 3.5 years, which is a dangling 3.5 years, represented copiously. That means a lot of places. 3.5 years, 42 months, 1,260 days based on a 30-day lunar calendar, and or times, and the half a time, which is 3.5 years. It's all specifically stipulated. It's unmistakable. Let's go on. And to seeds, we'll start from the beginning. Now to Abraham and the seed were the promises made. He saith not, and to seeds, as of many. That also brings to mind what it says in Romans 9:6. Not all Israel is Israel. Here's what we're going to name the video, something like that. I just got this unction. We're going to name this video, Christ is Israel, and Israel is Christ. And that's the realization that people need to come to. That's what we need to draw from this. That is what all of this is about. That right there is what Paul is trying to get across. But people don't pick up on it. Accomplished so-called theologians don't even pick up on it. But my coffee will pick me up here right now. He saith not, and to seeds, as of many, that you're not all Israel is Israel. Right there. And also that's the other half of that in Romans 9:6, 9:8, which says in 9:8, again, to reiterate, that these are the flesh. These are not. These are the flesh, these are the seed, synonymous, correlates perfectly, are not the children of God. But those or these of the promise are counted for the seed. Why can't we get this? Into thy seed, which is Christ. Exactly. Thank you, Paul. And this I say that the covenant, we just got done explaining the covenant and the numerical ramifications of it. not more than 2 minutes ago. And this I say that the covenant that was confirmed before of God in Christ, the law. There's your law and prophets right there. Revelation chapter 11. Law and prophets. But you want to physicalize it. You want to anthropomorphize it with the two witnesses. It's the law and the prophets. It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor. Because they're the two pillars before in the throne room of God. It's not anthropomorphized, assigning human-like qualities to the two witnesses. It's a metaphor. There's a concept in theology. It's called recapitulation. Most theologians don't go by it. No. That's the problem. That recapitulation, look at it like this. It's exactly like Christ told Nicodemus. He said, Nicodemus, you got to be born again. But Nicodemus didn't get it. Nicodemus was thinking still in the first priority of that concept. Nicodemus was thinking in the physical. Christ was telling him it goes from the physical through the format, spiritually, metaphorically, into the spiritual. But Nicodemus didn't get it. People still don't get it. Galatians 3:17, and this I say that the covenant that was confirmed before God in Christ, the law, and we just gave a few examples, which was 430 years after, cannot disannul, that means make void. It's a fancy way of saying make void. That it should make the promise of none effect. That's the simplest way we can explain this is this. Christ is Israel. That seed, Israel, is Christ. Let's give another example. We've given this many times before. Because it says in Matthew chapter 24 that Noah or Noah's generations were perfect. He was perfect in all his generations. That was the physical. Obviously, there's not going to be a flood. That's why God put the rainbow. You should know the story on that. It's God's rainbow. Nobody else's. Okay? With all your false humanistic pride. Well, pride goes before the fall. What was your first clue? But we digress. For if the inheritance be of the law, it is no more of promise. Exactly. The law was the physical. If you want to couch it like that, that's another way to look at it. Makes sense? But God gave it to Abraham by promise. That's exactly what Paul reiterated again in Romans 9:8, where he says, these are those of the spirit of the flesh are not the children of God, but those of the promise, just like it says right here in Galatians 3:18, those of the promise are counted for the seed. All this meshes perfectly. In the prophetic aspect is the covenant that was confirmed before, when Christ confirmed that covenant after the 62 weeks of Daniel 9:24-27. After. Wherefore, this is 3:19, wherefore, what Paul is doing, he's furthering the point. Then serveth the law. He's asking a rhetorical question. He's going to further explain. It was added because of transgressions. Like we said before. What were we saying before? About the 7 prerequisites that Christ fulfilled. To finish the transgression, make an end of sins, make reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. There you go, right there. Why can't people see that? Great falling away? Probably. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, in accordance with. Yeah, probably. That's probably our answer right there. Why? Because it's all been predicted. If it's been predicted, it's fulfilling right now as we speak. Wherefore, this is Galatians 3:19, we'll wrap it up right now. Wherefore, then serveth the law. It was added because of transgressions. To finish the transgression, the first prerequisite of Christ. In Daniel 9:24. It's right here. It's confirming it. It was added because of transgressions. Again, wherefore, then serveth the law. It was added because of transgressions, till the seed, singular, should come to whom the promise was made. Isn't that beautiful? People should be rejoicing right there with what this is saying. This is cause celeb. It's a fancy way of saying this is beautiful stuff. To whom the promise was made, and it was ordained by angels in the hand of a mediator. We will rest our case on the fact of that, going back to that word after the 62 weeks. That is the mediator right there. It was Jesus Christ in accordance with the 7 prerequisites of Daniel 9:24. Why can't people see this? Christ is Israel. Israel is Christ. Nicodemus was looking at the micro picture, and Christ was giving him, as a teacher of the law, the big picture, the macro picture of where Israel needed to go. Paul got it. If Paul would have been there after his Damascus experience, superimposing Paul for Nicodemus, Paul would have said, this is heavy-duty stuff. You're fulfilling so many different ways to look at this. That is fantastic. That's why Paul wrote about it with such fervency that we got, the recipe is for everybody to see in this equation. Why don't people see it? We'll leave you with that thought. If you're remnant, stay remnant. I love you guys. We'll talk soon.